Kate a minute or two.
Hi, everyone. I'm not wearing a mask, sorry, but I'm in my house. Although we all should be. Right, okay. That's my gavel. I now call the Patton Township Planning Commission work session to order for July 6, 2020. And our first order of business is public comments. And hearing none, moving on. Our next order of business, our staff's report on pending items. And I'm going to call upon the staff to fill us in.
Sure. So at our last meeting, we had 2 temporary use permits, one for the Ashcraft event and then one for the North Atherton Farmers Market to be extended. Both of those permits have been approved by the board. And then our pending work commission task, the planned airport district, is still on hold at this point. I do just have a small update for the trail connecting the planned airport district to other parts of town. On June 7th, myself and other township staff met with Penn State planners to continue the discussions about potential routes that we could take to connect those areas. Where it stands now, Penn State is taking some time to consult with some other stakeholders and get us some more information about 2 routes that we're looking at. And then township staff is working on drafting letters to talk to property owners that could be impacted by either one of those routes, which there's only one, so that's nice. So that's where we are now, and hopefully we can continue to see some forward momentum on that project. And of course, I will keep you all in the loop with that, but we're kind of in a holding pattern for now. Hopefully next meeting I'll have some more information for you guys.
Nicole, are you at liberty to tell us what you think might be one of their routes, or is that premature?
I mean, they're both very similar, so there's only slight deviations between the two. But mostly we're just trying to avoid having people on the roadway for Fox Hill and Fox Hollow when you go around that bend. So there's only really a couple little deviations from, the two routes we've identified. But yeah, next time I can attach what we're looking at for you guys so you can kind of get a visual perspective and get you that kind of further detail. But I don't have anything included this month.
Yep, thanks.
Sure. And then what we're going to talk about tonight is our affordable housing.
Shoot.
Okay. So as you all know, we have come up with 3 new options to look at to get some affordable housing in the township. The last meeting, we focused a lot on the first option, which is potentially allowing duplexes to be in the R2 district. We did settle on lot size of 18,000 feet and greater. And I did include a map showing what lots would be eligible just by that stipulation alone. Again, they'll have to abide by all the other regulations in the ordinance for setbacks and everything like that to be permitted. And we are requiring that they be in the area of public sewer. So right now we have almost 180 lots that could potentially allow for a duplex to be placed there. Again, I'm not sure how much more limited that could be based on setbacks, but it's a pretty good number to start with. And then the conversation that we had last time largely centered around parking. So I attached some items related to our current regulations for parking, both for the R3. I was trying to use that as kind of a jumping off point since we do allow duplexes there. And then kind of our overall township parking. And then just as comparison, I threw in Ferguson Township, especially since a lot of the lots we're looking at are in the Park Forest neighborhood, and obviously, the other part of Park Forest is in Ferguson Township. So at this point, it is staff's recommendation that we ask for 2 additional off-street parking spaces per unit. But that is, still up for discussion if anyone has, a strong feeling in a different way. That is just kind of our recommendation, kind of keeping in line with our current regulations.
Agreed.
So I go walking every morning down by the new S&A townhome area off the boulevard. And I had thought that we didn't have sufficient parking, but it sure appears that we do. Like half of the on-street parking is not filled. I realize much of the subdivision is not sold, but it appears to be sufficient. Does anybody else think that when they go through there?
What was your observation again, Kate?
I thought it was not going to be sufficient, but it appears to be just from walking through there on a daily basis.
Oh,
Brian,
yeah.
do you have any thoughts on that?
I would agree. I think it's sufficient.
What is the occupancy rate right now with PSU not in session?
My guess is it's only half sold. It's still being very much built out, right? But it's still like, there's a lot of people living there. Doug, do you have any, or Ken, what do you think?
Hey, Matt, can you turn her up, the room sound a little bit?
Hey, Ken, I have a question about, I don't want to interrupt, so I'll be quiet until we finish this file.
Okay, I think we're probably, there's the townhome units, there's probably between 10 and 12 units that are occupied at the moment.
Feels like more than that to me. But like I said, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of on-street parking spots open.
Yeah, each of those units has a double garage, and then they have 2 spaces between the street and the drive and the garage.
But some of them only have a single garage, for sure. Some of them are one.
Could be. I'd have to defer to Ken. I don't.
the units that we have single-family units and that are detached, and then there are townhouse units. But we did design it so that they did meet the parking requirements we have in place whenever that went through the planning commission and the board.
Yeah. So every unit has 2 spaces of its own, plus there are some on-street parking also.
Brian, what were you gonna say?
So back to how do we address the 2 parking spots for properties that might be able to have, you know, another accessory rental permit? I'm just, has anyone explored how that really would work? So are we saying, let's just take your typical driveway. What would prohibit, so my question to us, the planning commission, is how do we define 2 parking spots that are off street? Is that defined by a long driveway? Is that defined by how?
We have a definition that states to be considered a parking stall, it has to be accessible without moving any other vehicles, and it needs to be a space that is 9 foot wide and 18 feet long.
18 feet long, 9 foot wide.
Correct.
So Ken, are we saying we need 2 of them for 2 cars? The way it's
If
written?
we have a duplex, we need 4 of those.
Right. And if I have a long driveway, that would work as all 4, right?
No, because how are you going to access the car that's parked in position 1 whenever you have somebody parked in position 3 behind it?
Got it. I like that. Okay.
My house, my driveway is just long enough where a 3rd vehicle can park on the left-hand side, close to the sidewalk. And my half of the garage, I can back out and mess around that vehicle and not have to touch that 3rd vehicle. But a 4th work.
The only thing about it is, I guess in theory, I mean, these accessory dwellings aren't really going to often be that big.
Well, no, remember, we're talking about duplexes. That's what we're moving forward with. The direction we got from the planning commission was duplexes, not accessory dwellings. So
Yeah, I'm sorry.
duplex can be any size.
Yeah. Okay. So that negates my next point.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting. I thought we would get more hits when we did 18,000 square feet. We got 179. So I think that's kind of a good way to test the waters a little bit.
Agreed.
It's not a real big number.
What are you showing us, Nicole?
Oh, Alex is actually controlling that. She just zoomed in so you could see the lots that fit in that 18,000 foot requirement in the R2.
What you'll see here, guys, is anything that's a new neighborhood, new meaning from mid-80s onward, is likely not going to qualify, because as the home prices have gone up, land prices have gone up, and we're not building homes on 1,800 square foot lots anymore. They're much smaller.
18,000.
Yeah, correct. Sorry.
So any other conversation we need to have about this? Like, where do we want to, what kind of direction do we want to recommend?
Well, I understand what Brian's talking about, but at the moment, we don't have anything. So 180 lots is better than nothing, and we can always come back and change it if we find out it doesn't work. I mean, first, we just have to get this thing off the dime and make some kind of decision about something. It's been a little over a year now that we've been talking about this. So let's go with something and fix it later if we have to.
I agree.
I agree, Harry.
I just hate the fix it later, but modifying things. I think we're at what, 180 units that qualify for this right now.
Yeah.
I apologize. Our AC unit went out, so that was a phone call from the HVAC people saying,
You need to
How
take that
horrible.
call.
yeah, I took that call. So I would say 180 units, just send it up as it is right now is a good start. It's not too big, so if it's not going well, at least it's not going well in a small way and not going well in a big way and having to tell people to stop. So I'm okay with launching it with 180 units, kind of where it is, and see what takers we get or what blowback we get from the community.
Yeah.
My quick 2 cents worth is it's 179 available potential units, but how many will do it? My guess is not all that many.
I agree.
If I had to roll the dice, I would say we'd be lucky to get 3.
So we should move this
Start the
along,
pool.
I think. To Harry and Brian and Bill and Jim's point, let's just move this along, and then if we need to refine, we'll do it.
In agreement.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I agree too. I think that we can at least get some feedback and, tweak things if we need to going forward.
Okay. So we don't need to, there's no vote on this. This is just a recommendation, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so Nicole, take us next.
Okay, so the next item that we have selected is to mandate inclusionary units with or without density bonuses. So I have attached a summary of what other center region municipalities are doing with their affordable housing. So hopefully everyone's had some time to look over this information. I'm going to launch some poll questions that were in the agenda to first determine whether or not we want to go ahead and make the density bonus a thing or not, and then kind of try to break down what some of the other municipalities are doing, and if we kind of maybe want to do something similar, or if we want to take it in a different direction. But I thought the poll would be a good way to start the conversation there. So I will go ahead with that.
Can we have a quick, what would be the advantage of having the density bonus, anyone?
And what would be a density bonus?
So it could be just an extra incentive for the developer to kind of get a little bit more out of it. In the MXD2, which is the Patton Crossing, there's a density bonus where if they build to up to the max of what we would ask for affordable housing, then they could get additional, they could build additional affordable housing workforce units and get additional market rate units. So it increases the density, and then it increases the amount of housing that will go in there. And it's also market housing that would be increased, so that helps the developer kind of offset the cost a little bit.
I like
So-
carrot over stick.
I was gonna say, I don't know if anybody wants to clarify my explanation.
So you're offering a carrot versus a stick.
Sure. Do you want to look at it that way?
I like carrots.
But this all happened at Patton Crossing without any mandatory. The market kind of seemed to, the end result is we did make some concessions and got more affordable housing.
Right, this is Doug. At Patton Crossing, the first 5% of the there's a 5% requirement for affordable units. And then if they build more, then the incentives start for the next 5%. So it's a combination of stick and carrot.
So Doug, in theory, what would we be accomplishing by changing the density bonus? Because doesn't that kind of end up happening anyways?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's an incentive you offer the developer to build subsidized housing. So if, say, you could build 8 units per acre on a site, you might say, well, if you build one let's just say if you build one affordable housing unit, then you can build another market rate unit there. So you'd go from 8 units per acre to 10 units per acre total, and you'd get 10% of the units would be affordable housing.
Right. So isn't that similar to what happened at Patton Crossing? I'm trying to envision why do we want to firm this up? Right now it's loose. Do
Well,
we not want to keep it loose?
Typically, if you don't provide any incentive, they won't do it at all. So the incentive with Patton Crossing was the whole rezoning.
Aha.
Remember, they went from a multifamily and R3 zoning to a mixed-use zoning where they could do much more than they originally could. So that was the incentive for the first 5%. And then
Yeah,
the
I
second
understand.
5%
So
were
negotiating, moving forward, we got that because they had to negotiate with us. If in the future the parcel was zoned however the developer wants it, then we're never any more affordable housing to begin with. But this would be a smart thing to do. Right, Doug?
Well, the issue is the incentive big enough to motivate the developer to do it? And, where's that line is kind of hard to find sometimes.
So what are we voting on now? Whether we want one or how much of one we might want?
Just whether or not we want one. We can discuss
Yeah.
what that should look like farther down the road. Starting with the basics.
Well, I think that if just common sense applies, then we would want one because the goal is to get more affordable housing. So why would we vote no? Correct, guys?
Right.
Hello?
My question for clarification is what zonings currently require affordable housing? Only the MXD2, right?
There's another where the Trader Joe's Plaza, it's called commercial transition. It also required affordable housing. Came about in the same sort of way with a rezoning proposal. So, and then the only other place that we've required it or negotiated it is a few units out in Gray's Woods in a future phase. And I don't remember the
It
details of
falls
that.
under what, planned community?
Yeah, but it was negotiated as part of the master plan, so it's not in the regs for planned community, but as part of a master plan, we negotiated a few units, and I think it's just 10 or something like that, isn't it? Somebody remember better than I.
It's actually in the document.
I think overall, doing a carrot approach right now is definitely what I'm for. And then I'd also say that all new breweries must have an apartment complex of 10 units or above attached to it. As Nicole's,
I'll make a note of
nodding.
that.
Yeah. And I'm
But
also
yet-
for
But
more
at the end of the
breweries.
day, we're advantaging the developer a lot, right? So I like the carrot approach, but I don't know that it necessarily helps our population that much for just incrementally, slowly adding a unit or two.
Well, I think realistically, right now, the best thing to do, especially with the market the way it is, I think we're going to have development being down for the next year or two. And I also think that housing prices are also going to probably depress for a year or two, especially with the downtown improvements. So I think going with a offering of, hey, we'll give you this if you do this, it will probably cause anybody that is coming into the area to do things more likely to consider that. Whereas if we do the stick approach, they may not come in and do any development. Now, if we don't want any development period, then I would say that a heavy stick approach would be a good way of going.
Well, I would like a way, stick carrot, beside the point, I would like a way to measure the efficacy of this. Like, is there like some sort of metric we can put against it? and I open this up to everyone, but like,
Well, we can look at what the other municipalities have done in terms of how much incentive they've offered and how many units they've had developed. So Nicole can pull that information together.
Yeah, it's kind of in that document. And like I said, we don't necessarily have to decide on what the incentive looks like. It's just kind of setting the foundation of whether or not we want to go down that road to be
Yeah.
offering the additional units.
To be fair, if we really want to go down the road of getting units, then we're looking at a Singapore type option where we buy a property and we do it ourselves.
Well, I feel like we've talked about affordable housing forever. So this is just a small step going in that direction. Why would we not continue with it and move it forward?
I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
So what do we need to do, Doug, here?
You guys want to vote? Do you all see the poll?
Oh, okay.
I think
No,
already
I didn't see the
submitted it.
poll.
You don't see the poll?
Let me
It's on
look
phone.
again. When did you send it?
It should
There it
be
is.
live right now.
Got it.
Yeah, I got it.
I'm sorry, I don't see the poll.
Oh, I think
Are
you
you in the
voted
number,
yes, so we'll
Good,
put you
thanks.
down as a yes, Brian.
Thank you.
So I'm just curious, what are you hearing, township folks, what are you hearing, and Brian, in terms of the uncertainty around the fall semester and rental units and so on? Like, I've heard that the housing market for sales is very tight, but like, what do we know?
I would
Uh,
say, Kate, we don't know.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of uncertainty.
Well, I
there's a
think
lot of,
most people have signed their leases for next year because
Yeah, they
Penn
signed them back in
State said they were
October.
gonna have in-person classes, so, yeah, I
I can
don't,
tell you right now, I've been approached by several clients already looking to defeat their leases, which is going to have a chain reaction down the line. So I think it's going to really come down to, are there in-person classes? How many in-person classes are there really going to be? How many people are going to come up here? We might be hand-wringing over nothing, or we could see the market bottom out overnight.
Yeah. It sure looks like there's a lot of for rent signs downtown.
you want the real pessimistic view? That
Sure.
that for whatever reason, people don't come back or they get sent back home again, and we're sitting here about 6-8 months from now, and all these property owners with hundreds of units aren't getting any rent payment, and the next thing they do is they're turning around and they're filing appeals on their real estate assessments. And then
Yeah.
they all win appeals on the real estate assessments based on income generating potential of their properties, and we're sitting here at another revenue shortfall for several years into the future. That's the really
Any-
pessimistic viewpoint.
Point of view, yes.
I
Does
would get,
anyone recall the comments I've made for years about the market will correct itself as it pertains to rents? Well, the pandemic is going to lower the cost of rents, no doubt.
no. Not from what I've seen.
Not in the short run.
Not in the short run. And what I've seen on some of these leases, I've seen actually the leases go up in price.
Yeah, no,
Trying to make-
everybody's still, I mean, the issue is if people have signed leases, they have a contract, so, I mean, it's gonna be between the landlords and the tenants, and the state and the
I
courts
know-
will have to figure it out.
I know of at least one rental organization in this area that seems to have mysteriously deleted all of their clauses about Yeah,
Force
about
majeure.
all their force majeure clauses. So those, yeah. Getting ready for that,
Yeah.
students.
Oh,
But common
Yeah, I mean,
sense
we-
to think that the prices will go up defies common sense.
I don't think we can say what's gonna happen in the next 2 years at this point. I
Well,
think you got a whole new, the states and the courts are gonna have to figure this out over the
Right,
course
but
of the next year
meanwhile-
or two. And you have a whole lot of, there's going to be a whole lot of new labor law that's gonna come out of this too. 'Cause-
Correct, but while all that happens, people have monthly mortgages to pay.
Yeah.
So I believe that the occupancy rate is tied in to the rental rate per month. They are a direct correlation.
And until we know what happens with Penn State and, my contacts have been telling me, oh, it's going to happen. My other set of contacts with the same organization are saying, yeah, it's not going to happen. Until we see day one of how many students show up and move into their apartments, we're not going to know. If we have the standard, if we have the standard occupancy rate that we had before, I think we're going to see a moderate decline in pricing, and that's just because of the number of, as I look down, I look that way, nodding in which direction State College is of those towers. Yeah, it's going to, those towers are going to reduce the surrounding areas rental prices until Penn State increases the number of students, which also I'm being told that that's highly likely. So until we know what Penn State does and what the governor says Penn State can do due to the virus that shall not be named, we really don't know what's going to happen next. And I think I think realistically, looking at the tea leaves, we're looking at a lot of regulation issues, but I think we're probably going to be, as Happy Valley has been in the past, flatline on prices as everybody else goes down. I don't think it's going to go up or down, Brian.
Well, we shall see, right? I mean, the virus is going to do what the virus is going to do, and
Yep,
Penn State will do what Penn State will do, and
yep.
we will figure it out, right? All we can do is hope for the best that everyone stays healthy and we can have a in-person fall experience. That said, Nicole or Alex, you want to take us to the next agenda item?
Well, we need to finish up this poll. So I'm going to go ahead and declare that we are interested in doing the bonus, the density bonus. But I only have 4 results for which municipality is most favorable, and it's a complete split. So I don't know who didn't vote or who didn't want to vote. Brian, you said you couldn't see the poll, so I'm going to guess you didn't vote. Did you have a chance to review the other municipalities? Do you want to throw in a comment to sway this one way or another?
I haven't done the second half yet, so I gotta do
Oh,
it.
okay. Does anyone have any?
I would actually suggest, Nicole, that we know that the carrot approach worked. I'd like more information on how the stick approach has actually worked for the other municipalities to get a better idea. And I'm just going to lay my chip on the table that I'm very much against mandated doing anything for the developers on this stuff. I do think giving them bonuses is the way to go. But if there's evidence that shows that they're not going to do it, period, unless they're forced to do it, then I want to see what is the best option for that, because I'd be inclined for that option.
So I might have missed this, but I would love to know what Toll Brothers did for what was their concession for their big development out on Whitehall Road? If they had any?
I don't know that.
We'll check. We don't know if they had a requirement or not, but we'll check on that. and bring it back next meeting.
Thank you.
Bill, back to your point earlier, when we first started this a year ago, we had all sorts of developers and contractors come in, and virtually every one of them said, without any kind of incentives or bonuses, there's just no way you can make it work in Patton Township because of the price of the land. And that was predominantly the issue. They said if they go 10 miles out of town, they can buy 3 or 4 or 5 lots for the same price as one here. So, I mean, that's just a little history that was before your time.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I was going to say, and with some of the contractors that I've represented in this area, they tell me the exact same thing, that
Okay, good.
price of land is extraordinarily expensive. That's why I jokingly said, to Nicole also, I'd like, Patton Township just to fly me down to Singapore to actually take a look at, their housing setup down there. But at the same time, if we can't get the contractors to do what we want, then maybe we do look at, something more extreme down those lines of actually building our own units.
Okay, I can look into that more. And I do just want to reiterate that we're not necessarily deciding on what the amounts are. So it can be a small amount, but just making sure that we're getting something kind of in return for the density going in there and making sure people can afford to live in some of these places. But I have all that written down, and I will do some more research for you guys.
And really quick, Nicole, one thing that I found fascinating about the Singapore one, and I guess that's why I'm bringing it up now, is to take a look at it. They actually found out that certain size units had to be mixed in a certain way to actually, make everything work out right. So I'm sure you can find the same YouTube video that I watched that was 40 minutes long and fascinating about how they fixed their housing problem there.
Gotcha.
Spoiler alert, the government took over and took everything.
Gotcha.
Hey, Kate, can we all go get our dogs now?
This is actually my nephew. We're dog sitting.
Mine wants in really bad, but yeah.
So, all right. Okay, so are we good here?
So let me end this and I'll share it. It looks like we kind of have a tie between Ferguson Township and State College Borough. So if we don't want to discuss this anymore, I can take what notes I've already been given and bring back some more information for you guys and kind of dig into both of those a little bit more. Or we can keep talking about it. It's kind of up to you guys.
I think we'll move on.
Okay.
You agree, folks?
Yep.
Okay. Can you take us to the next item, please?
Yeah. So the third option that we are considering is adding the MXD2 overlay district to more of the C2 properties. So I had a map prepared for us to look at that shows the C2 properties, and it kind of gives a breakdown range of the size of those properties. So let's see, this guy here. I created several polls. I don't know if it's going to.
Hey, Nicole, can I ask you a quick question? I
Absolutely.
know it's not on this one, but, oh, that's not good. The property across from Geisinger, is that like a C2 as well, or is that, that's currently available for sale? It's not on this map, unfortunately.
If it's not on this map, then it's probably not C2.
It's office. It's
Okay.
office buffer district.
And just to clarify the map a little bit, if anybody had questions, the lighter area is that I-99 corridor overlay. And the only reason I differentiated that is because that's kind of an additional layer as well. So there would be a lot of different things going on zoning wise. I kind of dug into it, and I don't know if Ken or Doug wants to correct me, but I don't necessarily think there would be an issue with allowing that, the MXD2 to overlap with the I-99 corridor there. But it was just kind of a way to differentiate ways of looking at how to allow a different overlay. So If anybody has any questions about that, I can try to answer them. Or like I said, Doug or Ken, if there's anything in particular you think it's worth noting about that, the I-99 overlay. But ultimately with this, so as the MXD2 zoning is written now, it is designed for parcels that are 20 acres and over. And if you look at this map, that only gives us about 2 more parcels that would currently apply for that overlay. So this is kind of a way to look at how we want to maybe consider adding more of that option for any of these sites if they should come up for redevelopment to get some residential. And as we've already talked about, there's affordable housing provisions written into that overlay as well. So if you guys have any more questions for me, feel free to ask, but I will put up this poll to kind of help us decide how we want to approach where we can allow that MXD2.
So let me just clarify for my own knowledge here. So what we're asking is, do we want to mix residential units into these commercial properties?
Correct. And it would still, I mean, it would all be mixed use. So if it gets redeveloped, there will be still commercial elements, but then it will turn into kind of a more residential friendly area as well.
I like, I like the idea of quote unquote outdoor malls that actually have, people living above the mall area. So.
I like the idea of having affordable housing that's close to everything else, which all of this is.
Good point.
Hell, I
And
wanted
Paul,
to
just
build
to
a.
clarify, what are the 2 parcels that are currently available that aren't developed at all? Because it looks like most of the parcels are already virtually fully developed.
Yeah, see, a lot of this would hinge on redevelopment. So this would be a farther out in the future approach. But
Okay.
it would just be a good idea to kind of make the determination now so that when that comes through, this is already set in place. And I believe it's still going to be an optional overlay anyway. So they don't necessarily have to use the MXD2. They could still stay within the C2. So
Now,
Right. For
quick question,
redevelopment.
because I was going to say, sorry, quick question. Given that that we just approved that the process on the 3 or 5 lots back in, I believe, January or February.
the Patton Crossing.
No, not Patton Crossing. If you
Oh.
scroll up, it's in the colonnade sector. It's one of the purple zones, right next to Target.
The ED&F land development plan.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would they be willing to change it if we quickly got this through?
Well, they were part of a master plan, so I'm not sure. I mean, Doug or Ken, do you have any thoughts on that?
This Doug, knowing those developers, no, they're very traditional outdoor mall developers. I don't think they've got a creative bone in their body, so.
Okay, well then let's stick them.
Would you agree, Ken?
Yeah, they're not going to change their plan because they feel that residential mixed with commercial just creates a lot of issues that they would have to deal with in the end.
So the only other thing I will add to this, and I don't have a crystal ball, so I'm not trying to predict the future, but we do know that the way people shop is changing, and that's being accelerated by COVID-19. And whether or not it rebounds, we don't know. But I mean, it's been a long-standing thought for the last few years that brick and mortar retail stores are going to become a thing of the past.
Yep.
So it's possible, maybe not that development, maybe the colonnade will be fine for decades to come. But I do think there is a chance that some of this stuff might want and welcome the idea of being redeveloped with some other options than just traditional commercial. But that's just my perspective as a planner.
No, I think you're dead on right for that. I'm now just really wishing that we all had a crystal ball back in January or February so we could have said, yeah, no. There's this thing that's going to be coming along that's just going to basically destroy
Change life as we know it.
life as we know it. So no, we're not going to let you do that.
Do you get enough,
On that happy note,
right?
Well, I have 5 responses that are all in agreement that we should just open it up to allow for all the C2 properties. And so the one other thing that I will throw out to Doug and Ken and the rest of the staff, as you can see, there's a large chunk of this that are smaller parcels. Are we concerned about that? Do we need to have a more refined conversation about some of those properties that are on the 5 acres or less? Or would that be more of a, if somebody wants to come in with a plan, we just make sure it all fits and deal with it then?
I would suggest it's, because they're not homogeneous, I would suggest it's more on a plan-by-plan basis.
In agreement.
I just didn't realize, I think that there are so many parcels that are so much smaller. Because if you really start to look, like 33 parcels are 5 acres or less. So, but I mean, if it fits, they could maybe only be putting, a few things in there and it still would qualify. I don't know if we need to.
It depends on where they are and what's on it now, what's around them.
I will tell you the number of parking spaces is gonna end up limiting what anybody can do on any parcel.
Okay. That makes sense.
That's generally what becomes the limiting factor. Well, I mean, we'll have to look at it and, kind of do a little what if on a smaller parcel to see what somebody could do, but, generally it's gonna be, you're gonna almost have to do a multi-story building with first or second floor, retail / office, and then apartments above that, and,
sounds like we're getting towards my 25-story building.
Well, that'll be, that will become the issue at some point. Building heights, Patton Crossing, I went back and did some analysis, crunched some numbers and stuff, and it's generally the parking that limits what you can do. And, even with their stacked parking, parking still became the limiting factor. So, until we change parking ratios or do something different like that, probably the next thing will be, at some point, somebody, when the property gets, valuable enough, we'll start, go underground parking and building above that. But, I think property downtown is, probably on the order of 10 times as valuable as commercial property out here, so we're probably still a ways away from doing that.
Okay.
That all makes sense to me. I just wanted to make sure, because I just wanted to catch myself that if we allowed and some of those lots could be a little bit smaller, but.
I think the worst problem we could have is if there was a flood of people wanting to redevelop properties, right?
Yeah, it's obviously not the case at the moment, so we have time to refine this for sure.
Obviously.
So that's really all I have. If anyone has any other questions or thoughts about any of the 3, I do have some good feedback from you guys and some research to do to bring you back some new information. Alex looks like she's scrolling through the development update. And yeah, just keep plugging away at this and see where we get.
Any updates on the airport district?
I don't have anything at the moment. No.
We're not gonna be able to make any progress on that this year. That project was essentially, unbudgeted, and we were hopeful that, in a normal year, I'd be able to scrape together enough money to do that. We're in anything but a normal year, so, expectations of doing anything on the PAD, I think, are pretty low, like 0. But we will put it in our capital plan for next year and see if we can move forward at that point. But we are moving forward on the bike path stuff because it's mostly just time and effort from staff at this point.
May I just say, the extension of the Grays Woods Boulevard path has been delightful. I walk it every morning.
Good.
Yeah, Doug, I'm a little upset that that got done like well after I moved out of that area. So we don't have the ability.
You can go where I live by the church, all the way down to all the new S&A developments, and all the way back up Meeks Lane, or, Scotia Road to the new bike path and come back. It's a beautiful walk.
Yeah, I drive by it almost every morning on my way to drop the kids off, so. But, hey.
Yep.
As Kate knows, the fire department now has the hazmat rig. Yeah, Penn State no longer has the hazmat team, it's now Center County COG.
Okay.
So anything else, folks, for the good of the order? Let us hope and pray that next month we have lots of development plans to review, and that we're all back and full fig, and that the virus has been defeated, and we're on a go for fall.
So we'll see you in December?
All right, everyone. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Take care.